Right, welcome back. It's been almost 2 weeks since I finished the F5 MiG-28 to complete my Top Gun build. It's next project time. Going back to a car build. Now, I originally did this car, revisiting it, back in 2007. But back then, my modelling skills were absolutely pants. And to be honest, my skills are pants now, but it's a little bit better. And when I built this model originally, back in 2007, there was actually a couple of model shops in Wolverhampton. There ain't on now. And when I bought the clear gloss to seal the decals, the guy behind the counter said, no, this is clear gloss. It'll dry clear, don't worry about it. What he didn't tell me, it was actually a yellow clear gloss, like a varnish. And when I finished this model, it turned out really pants. So I'm hoping 15 years later, I can actually do this model some justice. So here's the next project. It is the 124 Tamiya Castrol Tom's Toyota Supra GT. This is from the Japan Touring Car Championship. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a backstory on this, so I'm going to turn the camera back round. So turning the camera back round, I first discovered this car in the original Gran Turismo game on the PlayStation 1. And that was like probably late 90s, early 2000s. And you have to save up 1.5 million credits in-game to buy this car. But it was the second car that I actually bought. The first car was the Mitsubishi 3000 GT LM Edition, which was like a greyish colour with Mitsubishi motors splashed all over it. So I grinded and grinded and grinded, bought the Mitsubishi, then I grinded and grinded and grinded, and then I eventually bought the Supra. So that's where I first discovered this car and fell in love with it. So turning the camera back round again, box art is pretty much the same from when it was 2007. Well, it actually says copyright 1995 there. Bloody hell. So box art's not too bad. So turning that round, got a Japanese writing on it. Now I was bought this kit last year for Father's Day, so I'm finally getting around to it over 18 months later. Right, now the sprues, you've got 3 main sprues, 1, 2, and you've got the clear part sprue. You've got the body shell itself in its own bag. So on this first sprue, you mainly got like exhaust, wing, fender wells underneath of the sump guard, radiator, bits of the side wing. You've got chrome wheels. I don't know whether I'm going to strip those yet. We'll see. Bits of a roll cage and a bit more wing maybe. Turning it over, you can see the roll cage there. The secondary sprue, well, I'd say that was the secondary sprue. This is the main sprue. So the main sprue consists of the underneath body chassis. You've got some side door, interior doors there. You've got a full engine kit. You've got suspension and brake calipers, bucket seat, underneath of the engine, suspension, brake discs, more suspension. You've got the clear parts, which is the front screen, the rear screen, headlamps and rear lamps as well. The tyres are rubber slicks. So you've got a front tyre, and then you've got the rear tyres, which are a bit more fatter than the front tyres, as you can probably make out there. You've got like a bit of fabric for the grille. I'm probably not going to use that. I'm going to use my metal grille sheet, which I've still got somewhere. So putting that to one side. Your decal sheet. Right, so you've got your water tyre decals, which you'll have to dip in water, put them on the tyres and then dip them off like reverse. I actually like those. I don't like the decals that go straight on top of the tyre, like normal decals. And then you've got the main decal sheet, which is full of the Castrol livery from the Japan touring car. Now the number 36, that will go on top of the main grille. There'll be like a grille there, and the 36 you'll have to put on each lip of the grille. So there's the main 36, and then you've got all these little black decals that make up the 36 on the grille. I remember when I built this in 2007, that was an absolute nightmare to get them decals down. You've got the 36 for the side doors for the Japan touring car, and then the various sponsor logos for the rest of the car. So not looking too bad. So there's my little kit review. It's time to get cracking on. Right, work has started on the Supra at step 1 and step 2, which is basically the front axle. So I'm just test fitting that because that's how it'll sit in, like that, into the underneath chassis. And step 1 is just basically the front axle and the engine. So here's step 1 on the page. So it's all the brake hubs, the bits of suspension, engine, or the lower suspension. Now basically what I did with the A sprue is I just primed it first and then painted all these parts on the sprue because I thought it'd be easier to do that. So I just did them by hand. Apart from that upper suspension part, I cut that off the sprue once I primed it and just spray painted that in Halford's gloss black. So you've got the gunmetal for the brake calipers, you've got artiste and antique gold for the brake discs and the brake calipers. For the rear of the brakes, you've got artiste titanium gold, which is like a mixture of brown and the actual metallic grey, which it tells you to paint, to combine those colours. 2 parts XF56, which is the metallic grey, and 1 part X9, which is brown. You've got some little rubber collars that fit inside the brake disc hub assembly. Just pop those in, you don't need to glue those. And then you just glue around the inside of the brake disc. Just put a drop of glue in there, very small bit of glue, and just glue that in. And it's just basically just gluing the top bit of the suspension onto the top. 1, 2, 3, 4 gluing points, gluing holes, and then sandwiching the brake hubs assemblies with this light square H shape. Now I cut that off the sprue and then spray painted that in the Halford's white primer, and then just where it's these little bits here on that H bracket, just painted those by hand in black. You've got the suspension rod here which clips onto the back of the brake hub. I've just painted that by hand with the gloss black, the revel. And then the armatures here on the triangle armatures, which is also on that white H shape, just painted those by hand. Now what I probably should have done, the eye hole there and the eye hole there, I should have put a bit of blue tack inside, because trying to put these on, it was very stiff because some of the paint had got inside the actual eye hole and the C-clips there, and it acted like a snap tight kit. I just pushed them on and just kept pushing until they're pushed into place, and I haven't had to actually glue them. So like I said, just try and mask those off with a bit of blue tack or something, because it'll be easy to put them on, and then you probably will need to glue those. I've had to re-glue the brake disc back on because it came off as I was trying to push those down, and that is actually supposed to move like that, but because it's a bit stiff with the paint, it won't move. But I'm not really bothered about that, to be honest. So step 2 on the plans is where you put it into the chassis with those 2 rods. Once you've done those, and you've got the suspension as well. The suspension is still on the sprue. There it is, because I've painted it on the sprue. I've still got to put those on. And you know, I'll put the suspension in those two little holes, and that'll just drop in there like that. It's not much, but it's definitely something. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment. A bit more work on the Supra. When I'd left you, I'd just got all this front axle assembly and just test fitting into place. I've now glued that into place. I had to widen the mounting hole slightly, and then they just dropped in. So I've just glued those in. I had to manoeuvre the suspension springs and coils round the suspension assembly and into that hole there, and into the hole there. Those little silver dots there. In front of the eye hole here, that's where they're mounting the suspension. I had to widen those holes slightly, but it pushed into place really nice, not bad at all. Now the one thing I forgot to mention is the underneath chassis. It tells you to paint it in the TS26, which is the spray white. On the underneath, don't do this. Looking at some pictures from what I could find on the internet and other people's builds, they've done the underneath in silver, so that's what I've done. So I spray painted that in the silver. On the interior, yes, do that. Spray in the white, because the interior needs to be white. So that I've just sprayed that in the Halford's white primer on top of the grey primer. So that's that explained. I've also put the first coat of the black on this box here, because when the rear axle goes in, I'm not going to be able to get to any of that wall there. So I'm painting that first before anything of the rear axle goes on. Talking of the rear axle, here's all the parts. You've got the suspension. I've painted those in red for the coils, silver for the arms, and then like that browny gold metallic for the ends. You've got the rear of the brake hubs. Those are in that browny metallic gold. You've got the drivetrain, that's in gunmetal black and yellow. So that's all that. And then you've got the brake and the brakes with the discs, gunmetal and the gold for the brake calipers. And that's going to be step 5. That piece there, that's on my Tamiya painting stand. I've painted that in the gloss black. I've already painted that as well. I'm just waiting for that to dry, which is that piece there. I've just got to paint those little calipers couplings in the gunmetal silver. And the front bumper area, that will be on the rear axle as well. So I spray painted down the white and black around the edges. You've got the two parts of the skid plate. You've got the radiator, and I'm not going to be using the fabric mesh. I'm actually going to be using that metal mesh that I bought when I did the DS9 runabout. I've still got a lot of that left, so I've cut that out. But that's where I'm sitting at the moment.